The galaxy. A super duper big thing. I roam the universe, watching over every pony. From the stations surrounding Ketoth to Equestria itself, I am everywhere where my presence is needed. I must always be vigilant, tenacious, and... What are you doing? I'm being deep. Yeah, deep trouble. You were doing the courtroom 20 minutes ago. Fine. And get off the ceiling. You'll leave hoofprints everywhere. Whoa! I feel pain. I feel pain, which means I'm a real superhero. Ow. Objection! Hello every pony, I'm MasterCode, your ace analyst, and today we'll be discussing the 2014 annual starring The Power Ponies. Released approximately 1 year after the original Power Ponies episode, this 40-page comic contains two stories. The primary story surrounding the Power Ponies combating Maniac and her League of Evil. The second tale is a short story of Maniac's shenanigans traveling to the Equestria Girls universe. And without further ado, let's dive into the annual.
The city of Townsville is under attack! The city of Townsville is on fire!
We open with our powered equines taking down a bunch of nefarious ne'er-do-wells, causing crime all over the city. The opening does do a good job of re-establishing each of the Power Ponies and their powers for the audience, along with introducing us to some new villains, like the Dispenser of Despair Longface, the Shoe-Pilfering Femme Fatale High Heel, and Pharaoh Fetlock. And of course, such a fiend would be the product of the evil that is Ancient Egypt! The villains are cheesy, and you got the typical epic comic poses, but it's part of the fun, coming off as a fun parody of the uber-dramatic comics, while still delivering some entertaining action moments as well.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
Now, something I thought that was rather interesting is the fact that the Power Ponies seem like a well-oiled unit to the public. However, they only consider themselves a team in name only. In fact, they don't like each other at all, preferring to go it out on their own, either out of jealousy for not receiving as much acclaim as their leader, or believing they're just plain better than the others. The comic could have just played it safe and just made a one-off regular good versus evil story, but the fact that we have a superhero team that hates each other and sticks together for the glory is funny. They are actually fighting criminals despite the animosity towards each other, and even though they're not the most fleshed out characters, the Power Ponies all have distinct personalities that would organically clash with one another. And of course, poor Humdrum is forgotten.
So ornery and sad, real wrong.
But it looks like trouble is brewing at Balcom Asylum, where we meet up with the villains, concocting a plan with the returning Maniac to form their own evil league.
Every villain is Lemons, otherwise known as evil.
The villains promptly escape and defeat the Power Ponies with their nearly organized team tactics, and places the defeated bears in easily escapable baskets.
I'm going to place him in an easily escapable situation involving an overly elaborate and exotic death.
You guys know you can just jump out, right? You're not bound in any way. You can just, run. No? Okay. The machine removes their powers and transfers them to the villains, and oh dear sweet Celestia! I think it's best to talk about the artwork at this point, with our artists Ben Bates and Heather Breckel. Even though we're dealing with a spin-off of an MLP universe, the overall feel of the comic looks like a legit dark and dramatic superhero comic with the use of heavy shadows in the landscapes and heavy shading on every pony's bodies and faces. The backgrounds are also textured to give the comic a much more grittier look, giving a nice contrast to the pastel colors on the ponies themselves. Anyway, following their power drain, the girls express their woes of being ordinary citizens and are on the verge of giving up, and thus we have the fundamental difference between the main 6 Power Ponies versus the Power Ponies actual. The main 6 during their comic adventure were put through the ringer, but they never gave up despite the grim situation. Here, the Power Ponies are just like, we give up, we're doomed. Doubt is understandable, but we don't look to heroes who give up, we look to those who try, regardless of how tough the situation is. Plus, they're gonna get their courage back, and almost immediately do with the help of Humdrum. It just comes off as kind of tropey, and you lose faith in the main characters, and it just feels out of place, even with the animosity animosity between each other. When the comic was in parody mode, like with the silly villains, it was doing fine. When it got serious is when it became kinda dull. Anyway, they are taught by the small cult about the magic of friendship through a relatively quick montage. You know, it makes me wonder what the villains are up to at this point. Are they just discussing their possible league names when they could be robbing banks or something? I mean, can you think of a legion of evildoers wasting time or discussing silly, unimportant things?
Look, I just want some pants. A decent pair of pants. Solomon Grundy want pants too.
Anyway, I was gonna criticize the comic again if they became a perfect unit with simple friendship scenarios and no actual combat training, and promptly defeated the bad guys. But when it's revealed that they set out to fight them only to get captured again was a hilarious reveal that quickly turned it back into parody territory. In their dire state, the Power Ponies come up with a brilliant strategy. Now that they quote-unquote understand friendship, they realize their best plan is to break up the villain's friendship. I have mixed feelings about this climax. Had it just been every pony rallies together as a big fight, good guys come out on top, it wouldn't have been original, but it would have been okay. As it is, we see them escape somehow and proceed to successfully manipulate the Pharaoh and the others to think they're all gonna betray each other. They're villains. Wouldn't they be privy to this kind of trick? Again, while it's executed fine, I've seen this story before. The saving grace being that there are some good visual gags as the Power Ponies mess with the bad guys. In the end, the villains are thrown back in the slammer, and the Power Ponies are more united than ever before. The second story involves Maniac escaping prison and enters the Equestria Girls universe, and even comes across her humanoid self. Which is weird because shouldn't she technically become human upon entering, as we've seen with every other instance the mirror has been used? Also, a green tentacle maned purple pony walking around town would raise a lot more suspicion and probably wouldn't have a smooth time trotting around. Realistically, there'd be folks going like,
It's coming right for us! Kick ass!
the two eccentric personalities squaring off and squabbling with each other is fun, but the problem is the comic just kind of peters out shortly afterwards with Maniac just leaving. They don't plan any crimes or mess with anybody. The comic just sets up another story that we'll probably never see continue. Not really much else to say on that. As for the main story, it's got its issues, but it was still entertaining with great visuals and lots of tongue-in-cheek humor that made it a fun read. If only it had stayed true to the 100% parody or wacky aspect, I wouldn't be so critical, but again, when it tries to be legit dramatic and brooding, it comes off as mundane and derivative. Still, it was nice to expand upon the world and lore of the Power Ponies in a one-off adventure. Well, that's it for today, guys. Until next time, MC out!